Welcome to Eye of the Storm. Never forget that we are the storm because we're standing together organizing a revolutionary movement. I have a very special guest with me today, Darlene Smith. Welcome, Darlene.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to share your story. It's so important to let people really know what's going on in the world around us with children being kidnapped from their families and just really give people insight on this. So I'm so thankful that you're here. But before I fully introduce you, I'd like to bring our Heavenly Father into the mix. So I'm going to do that really quick and then we'll continue. So, dear Heavenly Father, we come before you now. And as always, I'm just so thankful for this opportunity to share people and things with my audience and that you have laid upon my heart to share, Father. And I just thank you so much for Darlene and for her courage to come forward and to speak about what has happened in her life with her daughter being kidnapped medically from her and put into the system, Father. And there are so many children around the nation and around the world that are being taken from their families, Father. And it's so important for people to understand the real reasons why this is happening, that it is not what people think, Father. And so I just ask that you help us to change the hearts and minds of the people that are listening, Father, so that they can truly understand what is really taking place, Father. And as we expose this, I just pray for you to open doors and shut doors, Father, so that we can move mountains and part the Red Sea and bring children back to their parents and this atrocious and evil and malicious agenda that is taking place on our land, Father. And so I just ask that you continue to give Darlene the wisdom, strength, courage, and endurance, Father, that she needs to continue down this path to follow your light, Father, and put a hedge of protection around her as she is fighting this battle, Father, for we know that this is a spiritual battle. And so there are going to be things that are coming at us in every direction. And so we need you, Father, to use the tools that you have given to us to fight this spiritual battle, Father, so that we can get things back over center. And I just ask that you would protect Jesse and all of the other children that are suffering at the hands of this evilness that is taking place, Father, that you would just hold them in your arms and protect them from all of the evil wiles that are coming their way, Father, that you would just embolden them and strengthen them and make them grow up to be emboldened children of yours, Father, so that they too can walk in your light and be the change that needs to be seen, Father. So I just thank you for this opportunity to share Darlene's story, and may you just guide us through all of that we have to share. May those that are listening be the ones that need to hear it, Father, and may you just bless every moment that you give us, Father, in your precious name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
So Darlene, I'm so glad you're here. So she is a retired firefighter paramedic, a licensed registered nurse, and the devoted mother of a disabled 19-year-old daughter. For nearly 7 years, she has been fighting to reunite with her daughter after Georgia CPS removed her during a medical crisis, despite no charges of abuse or neglect. Darlene stands firm in her Christian faith and continues to speak out about the injustice, discrimination, and systemic failures that have kept them apart. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for, I'm just so glad that we were able to connect. And, hearing your story was one that I just thought, this is aside to things that people don't really understand. And so it's so important to share what you have gone through to help, others, to encourage others to speak out as well, because I feel like the only way that we're going to stop this is to expose it so that there can be awareness and then change can come. So please just kind of start from the beginning and just share with us what's taken place. And yeah, so just go. It's the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. First, my daughter is severely autistic, and she's highly suspected of having PANDAS and PANS, like a severe PANS case. It's a pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome. So they have an infectious trigger, and then like mycoplasma pneumonia or something like that, and it triggers brain inflammation, which causes um, aggression, self-injury, and some things like that. So, and that's medically treated. So I've been a single parent with her, and her father passed away in 2013. So there was an incident that she had back in 2017. It was July of 2017. She was actually going to a summer program for a severe behaviors um, program in downtown Atlanta. So I would ride the bus with her frequently for training. They would have me going back and forth, and they're training all day with their staff and everything, and then coming home on the bus with her sometimes. So we were getting ready for that, and um, one of the things about Pan's kids is separation anxiety. So when she knew it was ready, it was time to go on the bus. The bus had pulled up. She stood up and whacked her head on the wall in a self-injurious move. She just like leaned down and she just threw herself back against the wall in the bathtub. So it's fiberglass, but threw herself against that. And she had done that before. That wasn't her first incident like that she had done that. So um, my other daughter, my older daughter, came running out and said, "Mommy, there's something wrong with Jessie. She's not moving." So I was trying to scramble to get all her breakfast and lunch in a bag because the bus was there. So I ran into the bathroom where they were and I took her out of the bathtub. There was no water in there or anything, but um, she was what is called decorticate posturing. It is indicative of brain bleed. So I was on the phone with 911, of course, and she was taken down to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Um, I just want to note that she went down there with no lights and no sirens at all, because the paramedic that arrived said, "Oh, this is just autism, new onset of seizures." And I said, "No, this is trauma. This is trauma. This is trauma." So I whipped the sheet back to see if she was, to make sure she was still breathing after the incident. And the paramedic threatened me, "Don't touch her or we're going to throw you out of here." And I was just in such shock that he said that. I don't know why he would be so aggressive that way. So anyway, I just said nothing and we went down in normal traffic all the way to downtown Atlanta. So we get there and she's um, laying in bed and they're not really treating her for anything. They're not really doing anything with her. But because they were told it was autism, new onset of seizures, which she's never had a seizure in her life. So they allowed her to lay there all day. I was very nervous, very anxious all day, and so I called patient advocacy because I had worked for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta before on the pediatric critical care transport team. So I called patient advocacy, and they said, "Okay, to satisfy you, before we release her with a referral to a seizure clinic, we'll do a CT of the brain." This was about 8:30 in the morning. She came in, and they didn't do a CT until 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So when they did the CT of the brain, of course, it showed a large brain bleed because she had been laying there all day bleeding. So straight up to the PICU. So that was the first incident where where they were kind of doing nothing for her really. So she was 7 weeks in that hospital stay. So they sent us from there. They airlifted her to a facility in Virginia. So of course I went with her, and so we were in Virginia for 7 months in the Richmond area. So there was a problem at that facility, though. It had a very bad reputation, and I told them I don't want her to go there. I don't like the reviews. I don't like anything about this facility. So they flew the medical director in to speak to me and to have a meeting with me to talk me into allowing her to go. And they basically told me, "You don't have anywhere else to go. She doesn't have anywhere else to go." So we went there, and after I witnessed an abuse incident on another child, I pulled her out of there. And but she was still unstable as far as aggression and everything. So I had to put her into the local hospital there where she remained for 5 months, 4-point tied to a bed, and with nowhere to go. No facility accepting her, no real treatment plan. So they're just like, you guys just need to go home. Just go. So this is the types of problems that I've been having with not being able to get her proper treatment and care. So um, when we came back home, there were a couple times in the spring of 2018 where my daughter Jessie was in the emergency room. And when she was in the emergency room 2 different times for 2 weeks at a time in the emergency room. So just kind of waiting, they have a board there that shows, accepting facilities for emergency stabilization. So we sat there for 2 weeks, 2 different times. So one of those times, two of the ER physicians, the psychiatrist, Dr. Kristen Weinshank, and her supervisor, Dr. Vijay Bora, they took me into a late night meeting, and they said they found out about my religious waiver of exemption that I've had for years for my daughter, Jessie. So they found out about that, and they said, you need to put your religion aside for the betterment of your child. And I just kind of said back to them, well, if I was a Muslim, I don't think you'd be telling me this right now. So
Right.
I think you're just, basically having some anti-Christian bias going on. So the one doctor got up out of the meeting and she went and called DFACS on me. So then she lied to my face. She came out and said, this was Dr. Kristen Weinshank. She lied to my face and said, oh, don't worry. She said, I just called DFACS on you. I said, why? And she said, oh, don't worry. It's just for resources only. I was like, okay. So at 1 a.m, a Fulton County DFACS caseworker shows up and she says, what is the deal here? And I said, I have a religious waiver of exemption for my child, and this doctor does not like that. And so she says, that's why I had to come out here at 1 a.m. I said, I'm sorry, I did not call you. So she said, there are thousands of unvaccinated children in this country, and that is your right as a parent. Good night. But I asked her, were you told that this is a resources only case? She said no. So she left. Never heard anything from that again. So this was in the spring of 2018. So um, in around the end of August, we had just moved to Cherokee County from another county. And they had a good reputation for special needs in the school system. So that's why we moved to Cherokee County. So about 5 weeks after we moved, we weren't even settled or anything. She had a couple incidents where she had to be taken by fire rescue, restrained and sedated mildly, with like Ativan or something. And we would go down to the children's hospital. Well, when we got there, they said, she's fine. She's calm now. We're going to release her. We're not even going to, do anything or look at her. So, but after that same doctor, Kristen Weinshank, um, she basically got aggressed on by my daughter with the door closed. I heard the door closing and I heard my daughter, and I was out there with registration. And after my daughter aggressed on her, then she decided that she needed to stay. So, it's just a revolving door. If they're not treated medically properly, this is just a revolving door.
Right.
And so in October of 2018, there there were a couple incidents where she had just got out of a local facility here in the Midtown area. So she was not stable at the time of discharge. And Dr. Sewell was well aware of that at this facility. So, and I had a conversation with Dr. Sewell. I said, Dr. Sewell, you know, she is not medically stable. She needs emergency stabilization. She's not ready to go. She's aggressing on the staff right now. I can see her through the windows. And she said, sorry, they're not paying anymore, so I'm discharging her. So she was discharged unstable in the parking lot, and she started hitting her head on the window of our vehicle. So I couldn't just allow her to hit her head like that for 45 minutes on the way home. So I knew I couldn't go directly home. So we ended up going to the emergency room. So they kept her for a few hours, and they said, she's fine. And they discharged her, and she was hitting her head on the window once she got in the car, you know, and in the ambulance bay. So we went home, and the next morning I told her it was time for the bus to go to school. And again, with the separation anxiety, and she's nonverbal, pretty nonverbal. She can say a word here or there, but she really has um, very minimal verbal communication. So she just ran towards me and got me by the hair, two handfuls of hair and stuff, and just started aggressing on me really bad. Because a lot of people don't know that in severe autism, that they aggress on their main caregiver the most, the person they feel the most comfortable or safe with. So she did that, and we ended right back up at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. So at that time, they said, okay, we're going to find an emergency stabilization facility. So by the next day, she was still in the emergency room. They couldn't find one, but they didn't say that to me until they had a meeting with me that night. They had a meeting with me that night, and what I didn't know is that DFACS was sitting in that meeting, and they didn't introduce themselves. So, and the patient advocate came in, who I recognized, you know, from being a former employee. I recognized the lady. So she came and sat down right beside me and said, and patted me on the thigh and said, don't worry, I'm right here with you. And that set a panic on in me, because I'm like, whoa, why would I be worried about anything?
Right.
So they were already plotting this, you know, with the social worker, I guess, whom I don't know. So they brought me in this meeting, and the psychiatrist from Scottish Rite, it's a different hospital from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, she said, okay, why don't you just take her home? I said, what happened to the plan? What happened to the treatment plan? And she said, well, there are no accepting facilities, so you just need to take her home. I said, this is going to keep happening until she gets treatment for her brain inflammation. She needs treatment. So anyone who knows me knows that I'm a staunch advocate in the medical field for my patients. And how much more am I passionate and mama bear about my own daughter? So I said, no, we need to please stick to the plan. And the social worker who was there from DFACS just rolled her eyes. I remember her name was Tabitha. So it was just a few minutes later that she introduced herself, because my county is about 45 minutes away from the hospital. So this was all pre-planned. About 10 minutes after the meeting broke, here's this woman, Tabitha, introducing herself, saying she's from DFACS. And she said, and we're taking her. I said, what are you talking about? She said, oh, we heard that you put your hands on somebody at a facility. I said, There's cameras all over the place. Why didn't you call the police? What are you talking about? I've never put my hands on anybody. So I have no criminal record. I have no idea what she's talking about. So they're just making up excuses to take her. And then she wrote down some little handwritten spiral scrap paper note that said that the child is autistic, that the child has special needs, that the medications don't make sense to the ER doctors. Pray the court find relief. And that's all they needed to take custody of my daughter away from me. There was no one-on-one interview with her. There was no alternative. There was no warrant. She's safe in a hospital setting. You know, what is the problem?
Right.
So, of course, I was hysterical and I was on the phone with her pediatrician. But they asked me to leave the hospital and don't come back the next day. And they said, show up for court. They didn't even tell me what court it was, but they said, just be at court in the morning.
Just
I know.
figure it out on your own kind of thing. Like,
Right.
okay. And then they can blame you for not showing up. Oh, well, you didn't show up. Like if you did, you know what I mean?
Right.
They just set you up for failure. It's crazy. Keep going, please.
Right. So the next day I was in court, and then I got a continuance because I didn't have an attorney, of course. But the first few hearings, I was not allowed in my own hearing. I was out in the lobby while my own hearing was going on. I thought we had the right in this country to face our accusers.
That's right. We do.
So my attorney that I got, who didn't know me at all, is running out of the court back and forth. They're saying this. What are they talking about? And running back in and stuff. So they let me in about the time the DFACS investigator, Jessica Edwards, got on. She was already on the stand when I walked in. So they let me in for that portion of it, where she was just falsely accusing me of everything under the sun. But when you have these false accusations against you, sometimes it's like you're very embarrassed by it, first of all. And as a parent, especially an excellent parent, you're like, okay, they're human, they can make mistakes. They're going to figure this out, and they're going to realize that I'm an excellent mother, and they're going to give her back to me. But that is not what happened. They dig in their heels, even when they're wrong and they know they're wrong. They dig in their heels against you and just bury you in lies. And in juvenile court, this is juvenile dependency court. So hearsay is allowed. So it is just an everything goes, crap show in there. They can say whatever they want. They don't have to have proof of anything. Their word is gold to the judge. And most of these judges are former DFACS SAG attorneys.
Right.
So I had this one judge.
It's crazy. Go ahead.
Yes, I had this one judge, John Klein, and he was the only one in my case who was actually about fair. You know what I'm saying? Like unbiased, really. So he's a probate judge, and he was standing in because they had just appointed Judge Jennifer Davis, who was a former DFACS attorney and former GAL, and she
was the campaign for yesterday. Go ahead.
Yeah. So she came on January 1st of 2019. Well, my case happened October 17th, 2018. So there was like just a couple months there where this judge was standing in, Judge Klein. So Judge Klein says in the fact-finding type of hearing they have, he said, the paralegal told me that she had never seen a judge's order written so eloquently pro-parent. So he writes his order saying, thanking me for being up on my daughter's condition. And even though I have sought every resource I could, that he believes that dependency still exists, but it exists because not from a parental deficiency, but because of her medical condition. Her condition is what's causing the dependency, along with a lack of resources.
Right.
So he said that his opinion was, if we keep her in care with the state, they have access to more resources, and this will help you reunify faster if we can just keep her in care and they can locate the resources you need. Well, that is not what happened at all. As soon as Judge Jennifer Davis came in, it was a war. This woman did not care 1 ounce what Judge Klein said or his opinion. And I had been on that stand, I think I was there for like 3.5, 4 hours. So she didn't know me from anybody.
Right.
So as soon as she came on, it was war. And she wouldn't give me anything to do. She wouldn't tell them anything to do. And basically, the DFACS SAG attorney, Hope Pereira, ran the show. She would run the hearing, and the judge would just sit there. So I believe they are, probably personal and professional friends and work together, coworkers as attorneys. They're not new to each other. So I I've just been trying to get her back ever since. And they have pulled every shenanigan in the book to keep her in their care because reunification does not pay.
Right.
But the more special needs you are, the more disabled you are, the higher the amount of Social Security Title IV-E federal funding they get. So my daughter's about funding, a lot of their salaries.
Yes, definitely. And they put her into a foster caregiver, correct?
Yes, but
So why don't you tell us about that?
at
Go
first
ahead.
they sent her to South Carolina for 3 years. So every weekend for 3 years, I was in South Carolina. So at that facility, I had 8 hours of unsupervised visitation every week. So I was up there every week, unsupervised visitation, and I would take her off campus and be driving around everywhere with her, all day long. So as soon as she got back, they were bringing her to Georgia. They found a foster that they said it was a therapeutic foster home. And all that is saying that they have an ABA provider, some kind of ABA or speech or, OT. So they brought her back over to Georgia to this woman. And I found out just recently why they didn't want me to know anything about this woman. I never knew where she lived. I never knew her name, her face, nothing about her. So they were hiding everything from me. And I know sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. But I found out this woman has a violent history with domestic violence, and she has a domestic violence related arrest for aggravated assault with a weapon and a glass bottle. So, and in the police report, it states that the officer saw the video of her and what appeared to be her, Glock handgun going up the stairs and going in there where her husband was at the time, that sort of thing. And it says that she was not interviewed at that time because she was intoxicated. So I take issue with someone having my daughter who has substance abuse issues and they're running around with a gun. I'm not anti gun, I'm anti irresponsible or criminal gun activity. So, um,
And they took away your visits, like, so between South Carolina and this caretaker, they removed your being able to see her.
I had visits at first. There's a
Right.
pattern here. There was 8 hours unsupervised in South Carolina. Then I knew as soon as they got her back over that border that they were going to start their shenanigans, and they did. As soon as she got back, I had 8 hours unsupervised, and I had 2 phone calls a week. She gets back, we have a meeting. One of the 2 meetings we've ever had the entire case. 2 meetings. So that meeting, they said, we're not doing 8 hours. We're not going to hire somebody for 8 hours. So we're going to do 4 hours. So automatically they cut it in half. No hearing, no judge's order. They cut it in half. And they went into the hearing gaining supervised visitation. So the caseworker said to me a few days after she got back into Georgia, she emailed me and said, "What is your address?" And I said, "It's in the court record. It hasn't changed." And she said, "What is your address? I need to confirm it." So I told her my address. And then the hearing was a month later. So we had a citizen review panel meeting the day before the hearing. And in that citizen review panel meeting, this same caseworker said, "What is your address?" I said, "It hasn't changed. It's still the same in the court record. It was the same as when I told you last month, a few weeks ago." And she said, "What is your address?" So I told it to her again. That was January 19th of 2022. Then January 20th, we had a big hearing. And she goes into this hearing saying she has no idea where mom resides. So the SAG attorney is flailing around, all dramatic. "We have too many unknowns here." So yeah, they're a circus act. So yeah, they used that, and they said she had orange urine, which I don't know what that's about. I provided everything to her when she came to visitation. So um, I had she's in diapers, you know. So mine have an orange liner in them. I don't know if it bled. I don't know what happened. So they acted like I was some psychopath who was doing something to her. So they had
Right.
supervised visitation. Then it was 4 hours per week. So it was 8 hours unsupervised with 2 phone calls. They got rid of the phone calls. They said this foster is not willing to do phone calls. And they said, since my daughter is nonverbal, they have no therapeutic value. I had phone calls with my daughter at the facility she was in South Carolina, and I would talk to her and I would read her a book and I would sing to her, you know. That I think there's therapeutic value in hearing from your own mother.
Absolutely.
So
And
why a
it's kind of
child
calm
welfare
for them. Go ahead.
why a child welfare agency would think any different is beyond me.
Hmm.
So there was 8 hours unsupervised. Then they got supervised and cut visitation in half to 4 hours. So I had 4 hours per week supervised. Then at one point where they do a tactic where um, sorry, I'm trying to think of it. They CC your attorney on everything, so they will run out your money for your legal fees.
Right.
So I mean, and this is a heavy duty case, that's very involved. So we're emailing 20 times a week, kind of thing.
Hmm.
So they ran out my legal fees, and my attorney wanted more money, and he wasn't really doing anything for me anyway. So I ended up
Usually.
going pro se at that point, and is it was about May of 2022. So oh goodness, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here.
Okay. You're okay. You're doing great. So
Yeah,
you went to 4 hours supervised,
yes. And
and
now,
then
then when I went pro se, I
right.
went to the DFAC's office and I said to the lady at the front desk, I said, I'm looking for your policies and procedures. I need them in writing. Um, and she kind of looked puzzled. So she started texting with the director, Brooke Ford, Cherokee County DFACS director, Brooke Ford. And she said, I'm texting with the director because that's not something, that's not a usual question for us. I said, okay. So um, she said, the director wants to know what your name is. And I said, ma'am, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I don't think it's relevant. Like it doesn't matter who I am. I'm just asking for policies and procedures. So I guess she didn't like that answer. um, she said, the director said they're online. You can get them online. So they're supposed to provide them,
Mm-hmm.
as requested, a copy
Right.
of them in person. So I just left. And the next day, she must have looked at the lobby cameras. And the next day, I get an email from the caseworker cutting my visitation time from 4 hours a week to 2 hours a week. With, oh, it's just better this way. So, oh, blamed it on transportation, and the transporter said to me, I was wondering what happened. So yeah, that's their MO in Cherokee County, and Cherokee County is one of the worst counties for DFACS problems. So they retaliate over they retaliate by cutting your visitation, changing your visitation days, cutting the times, cutting the hours, cutting everything. And
Mm-hmm.
this caseworker had a pattern of retaliating against me after every court meeting, like the citizen review panel meeting. She would cancel my visitation after that next visitation. After every hearing, she would make sure she canceled visitation after that. Mother's Day, she's going to cancel visitation, And one of the worst examples of that was um, it was Christmas Eve of Christmas Eve of 2023, no, 2022, Christmas Eve of 2022. Um, I was working in Florida as a frontline disaster relief nurse for Hurricane Ian. So I was doing a lot of ER work on Fort Myers Beach and for a FEMA contract. So I drove back because I knew visitation was the next day. So I drove back from Fort Myers, Florida, and in the hurricane conditions, it had wiped out a bunch of roads and everything. It took me like 12 hours to get home. So I got home I think it was like 4 in the morning, and visitation was at 8. So the the caseworker told me that visitation was still on, and but she never told the foster that visitation was on, and she never told transportation that visitation was on. And I know that that foster wants to get rid of my daughter whenever she can. You know what I'm saying? She wants to get paid. She doesn't want her there.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not going to forget a visitation. She didn't forget. She wasn't told.
Right.
And the transportation lady is spot on. She runs a very tight ship, and she knows when they cancel, when they don't. She makes notes of everything. So they did that on purpose. And I was sitting there in the park, 9-degree weather, Christmas Eve, and my daughter was nowhere to be found. So they that's all the kind of psychological warfare they were
Mm-hmm.
playing. And a few weeks after that, I had gotten my daughter. We had to celebrate Christmas in January because of this caseworker, doing this to us. Rebecca Stevens is her name. And so we had to celebrate weeks later in January. So I got her favorite squishmallows. I don't know if you know what those are. They're the big, soft, stuffed animals, and she loves them. She always carries one around with her because she has sensory issues.
Mm-hmm.
So this caseworker knew she was leaving the case at that point. She took these squishmallows that I had just bought her for Christmas, like 2 or 3 weeks prior. And she shoved him in a black garbage bag and she said, Jesse doesn't want him, and she gave him back to me. Just anything this woman could do to try and torture me is what she did. Any kind of lies. She was the kind of caseworker who was always background checking me. I mean, how many times can you background check me? At first, they had me followed. I'm assuming he was some kind of police officer. He looked like one. And he had a big white SUV. I guess he got tired of going to Hobby Lobby.
He's like, it's like she's not doing anything.
In Publix and sorry, guy, I lead a boring life. My daughter is my life. So now you're taking my life away from me. You're just gonna, follow me to Goodwill or something. So that's about it. Right now, they did not TPR me. I did not technically meet any elements of TPR, termination of parental rights. So they do a backdoor TPR is what I call it. They know that she is disabled and will go into guardianship at 18. So when she turned 18, they just got together and plotted against me, got my petition for guardianship thrown out on technicality of service, and had my ex-mother-in-law appointed guardian. And she lives in Connecticut. So she was estranged from Jessie. She hadn't seen her at that time in 6 or 7 years. So she told the judge that she has no plans on coming down to Georgia to visit her. Most out-of-state guardianship is illegal in other states for obvious reasons. And then she said that she plans on turning her granddaughter back over to the state at age 21 when DFAC stops paying this foster. So that's where I'm at right now with, and the guardian, my ex-mother-in-law, never directly told me that I could not see my daughter. DFACs told me I couldn't see her. They were retaliating against me because she had 2 or 3 incidents where she had a pattern injury that was on one side of her face and neck. It looked like something ran her over, like almost like a small vacuum cleaner with almost like petechial marks. It was a pattern injury. I mean, anything petechial and pattern is like an automatic red flag for abuse. So she had it. It looked like it hit her right here, and it was at the top of her chest, around her neck, on the side of her face. So with the way they handle everything, passing it off and don't care, I made a police report on it. So they did not like that at all. They threatened me and said, you better not call the police again.
DFACs or?
DFACs, yes. They said, you better not call the police again. So yes, I called the police again because she wears diapers and she can't properly wipe herself. She needs help. So having black feces streaks in your diaper because you can't wipe yourself is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And this foster just told the police that, mom's just mad that she hasn't done what they wanted her to in order to get her child returned. So I'm just trying to teach her how to change herself. So I guess you're allowed to neglect children if you're in, if you're a foster.
Yes, you're a foster caregiver.
They would have a lot to say if that were me doing the same thing. I've never done anything like that. So
were you saying there was also something about like several diapers that they had her in, many of them, and they were all soaking wet?
Yes, they had her in 5 diapers at one time. She was wearing 5 diapers at one time, and they were soaking wet. And then the police officer tried to turn that one around on me as if I did something wrong. Well, did you smell it? Like the first one who smelled it,
Yeah.
has a problem or something. Oh, you didn't
Right.
catch it when she got in your car, then she did that when she was with you. And I was like, wow, really? And she told the foster that she needs to get a restraining order against me. I said, really? I said, why? And she says, well, she said, you're not supposed to know where she lives. I said, well, then the court shouldn't have put it on the probate paperwork.
Right. Idiots. You're like that.
Come
Am
on,
I not
really?
supposed to read? You know what I mean?
Yes. And this foster has also had prior shooting and stabbing incident at her home, domestic violence related. I mean, the calls for service to this house. She had a prior home, but when she got Jesse, she really, hit the financial jackpot and bought a
Hmm.
new big new home. So she's got a couple other fosters there, from what I understand.
Right. And are they all as well special needs? I mean, or you wouldn't know, I guess. Yeah.
And I was told no.
Right.
Told
But it's
no.
interesting because I mean, we were talking. It's like that. This is into the over $100,000 that she's getting just for Jesse.
Yes.
So, I mean, imagine that. That's a lot of money and a real good reason for them to want to keep having them. And
Yeah.
all of the requirements that they make parents have, like, get
Right.
thrown out the window as soon as you have some kind of care. Because if you were a felon or, had all of these things going on, like, I mean, didn't they try and say something
If I
about,
were a felon, you mean like if I had a parking ticket from 20
right?
years ago?
I know. I know. I mean, if you jaywalked, they would be like, oh my
Right.
gosh, you know what I mean? But
They
it's
would
like
want to talk about that incident.
I know. Well, tell us about, because they were also trying to discredit you being a nurse and a paramedic.
Yes,
So,
I'm in the court record as a DoorDash driver because once they took Jesse, it took me 6 months to be able to get a job because of they had me in court all the time, unpredictable every week, and they really gave me absolute last minute notice. Sometimes it wasn't even by law notice. They told me the next day I had to be in court. So after about 6 months of going back and forth to South Carolina, I only had a few hours a day, here and there where I was able to work. So I started door dashing,
mhm.
because I couldn't work a 12-hour shift or anything like that. I couldn't work anything steady. So eventually, that same year, I got into nursing and everything. So they do that in cases. They try to make you look as uneducated as possible, you know. So they have me in the record as a DoorDash driver, and they said, I found this out at a citizen review panel meeting because they don't tell you anything. They don't directly tell you what their issue is with you. They want to keep the door open to be able to blame you for anything and everything. So
Right.
they are never specific. They're very vague. So they they just leave the door open for anything. That's what
Right.
they do. So they don't give you any paperwork. You never see any paperwork from them. I mean, I've requested my case file 4 or 5 times. I've never gotten it. I've never even gotten a response from them. So it took me, I think it was 2.5 years to get my transcripts. And the court reporter, Tamara Snaith, quit Cherokee County and is living in the Florida Panhandle somewhere with my records. So, and then she answers her official court email after she had already, months prior, she had quit the courthouse, but she's answering on her official court email. And then she still colludes, with the court back and forth and everything. And that's the problem with, um, there's a former Cherokee County DFACS caseworker now works at the court. And that's fairly common for them to go to the court.
Right.
So Mindy Foster Colley, and this woman is, she fights tooth and nail against reunification. You go over to the courthouse to file something, she always has an excuse of why you can't file it. Oh, well, have a seat, we'll be with you. And then she comes back with some excuse. She gave me this little sticky note on somebody's vacation schedule and why I couldn't file a motion. And I had to wait until somebody got back from vacation to file. Then I filed the motion and they completely ignored it, even though, they put it in the record. They completely ignored it, did not address it. So those are the kinds of issues that parents have, being left out of our hearings. And then this woman would purposely double and triple book you for appointments. So if they say, oh, we need a psychological from you, well, it's the same day as the treatment team meeting and this other, citizen review panel meeting. And they make sure that they double and triple book you to make you look like an irresponsible parent, because you can only be in one place at one time. And then the other two meetings, where's mom? Oh, I don't know.
Right. She's just
So
not showing up.
Right. And I have never missed an appearance anywhere. I've never missed a meeting, nothing. I didn't miss visitation. I was not told I had to go every week. I just went every week because I want to see my daughter,
Right.
So, that just said, visit your daughter routinely. But then they put a bunch of stuff in the case plan after the fact and they wouldn't give me a copy of it. And that's what they said in court. Well, she didn't follow the case plan. We want non-reunification. But they never even said in the hearing what I didn't follow, and never addressed that with me in any form of email saying, oh, your case plan says this, this, and this, and you're missing this. Nothing. They did not try to give me any resources for my daughter. They didn't say, oh, well, we're going to try and set up ABA, in-home ABA, like you need for her. And we're going to get a consultation and, and we're going to do a home visit. Nothing like that. It
was like they just planned to take her out. They didn't want to give you any kind of resources to see if you could care for her on your own, because that's what you were seeking. And it's like, I even want to kind of go back to when they were having you in court and they would have you sit outside, but then they'd bring you back in to say that and have you agree that you agree with everything that was taking place. Like, yes, you're not even there.
Yes, they've done that before, right? The first hearing that I ever saw, Judge Jennifer Davis, she was in a different courtroom than she ended up in. So I come into this courtroom, I've never seen this woman before, and she's basically, saying, do you agree to everything? And the attorney's like, say yes. And it's like, what?
I don't even know what was said.
Why am I agreeing to? What am I agreeing to? I wasn't even here. I was waiting outside. There is no due process rights for parents. And you have people plotting against you like Mindy Foster Colley, in the courthouse. And they even have the clerk of court people, they kind of jump when they recognize you coming in the door. It's like you wonder, I guess they just had a meeting about me or something where they showed them my picture, because why, and then they are, the clerk of court, the one clerk in the clerk of court's office, she was running interference for the judge. The citizen review panel puts out their notes that are considered by the judge in the case, recommendations, and you can file against those recommendations and have a hearing. So they were trying to block me from being able to file against these and have a hearing by saying the judge is the judge is on vacation this week. That was a lie. Judge Jennifer Davis was there the entire time. These are the types of things they do, and they're getting away with it. I said, who is the court administrator? And they wouldn't tell me. They said there is none. Yes, there is a court administrator. They just didn't want to tell me. Right. And they said, oh, no, that's not how it works. The Superior Court judges run everything. And now Judge Jennifer Davis ran for Superior Court unopposed, and she's there now. And Superior Court judges appoint the juvenile court judges.
Right.
And, at the end of my case, I tried to bring in CASA, not knowing that, thinking they might be a neutral party, but they're not at all.
Mm-mm.
So I got CASA. I requested CASA in my case, and Judge Jennifer Davis was very reluctant to appoint CASA, but she did.
And CASA's a court-appointed social advocate or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. So Cherokee County CASA, guess who's on the board of directors? Well, she was on the board of advisors. Judge Jennifer Davis, my judge, was on the board of advisors for CASA in this county. And then it looked like they moved her to the board of directors position for her running for office. And then now she's back at the advisors, the advisory committee. So guess who she's on the advisory committee with? Cherokee County DFACS Director Brooke Ford. So I've got I'm going up against opposing counsel, has their boss, in this CASA mess with the judge. I mean, it's just such a conflict of interest. And yes. I brought it up to the Georgia JQC, the Judicial Qualifications Commission. And they wrote me back and said, "Oh, we have no reason to investigate this. Have a nice day."
Like they're all in on it. It's crazy.
Who do you run to? That's the problem with DFACS. There is no oversight. They have the supposed Office of the Child Advocate. They do nothing. The Office of the Inspector General, they're just full of DFACS workers,
Right. To help each other, to keep it going, to hide.
The Attorney General is absolutely on DFACS side. They're like,
Well, it's like it's like you need to call DFACS on DFACS too. You know what I mean? You can't even do that. That's why I'm saying it's like CPS. You got to call but you can't. There's no checks because even with that like citizen review panel or whatever it is, like all they can do is give recommendations to the judge, and then whether or not he wants to take them. I mean, it's all a bunch of smoke and mirrors to seem like there's all these avenues to go. And as long as you go there, then you're going to have somebody that's going to stand up for you and do whatever. And it's like, no, you're just going to let them know that they need to work harder to keep the shenanigans going, to keep you at bay so that, they can continue on with it. I mean, it is like so ridiculous. So I'd like to ask you, like, if you had a chance to do this over again, how would you have like gone down the same path? Because I know your intention was to get her help. And so knowing that, what would you have done?
What would I do different knowing what I know now? I would have never signed the case plan. I would have never signed anything from them. And if you have signed a case plan, you need to put in rescinding any agreement you have with them, because that's the only way they can really work. They really can get you legally is by you signing the case plan. You don't sign the case plan, they don't have very much they can go on unless they have a mountain of, physical evidence or something, in your case. So I would be more vocal. I wouldn't be, parents are afraid, they're embarrassed, because even law enforcement, I was in the law enforcement field a little bit, just with a side job that I had with the police department for 9 years. But even they are a tad ignorant when it comes to DFACS and how they operate. All they know is they just go, they send an officer out at the door with this person and stuff. And I've had so many of them say, "Well, mom must have done something wrong for DFACS to come." It's like, you don't understand. You don't really have to do anything. All I did was take my daughter to the emergency room. Right. There was no physical abuse alleged. So they didn't need a child abuse pediatrician in my case, which they do with all the other cases, most cases of medical kidnapping. But I heard that Children's Healthcare of Atlanta just kidnapped another child like mine with severe nonverbal autism, because, it's a Cash for Kids scandal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like a very organized crime syndicate. It's racketeering, but it's like tailored to even foster parents who want to take children, So it's like there's so much darkness to this agenda that is really crazy to uncover. And it's like, I don't think people quite understand how organized it is and like how like incestuous these people are, like especially when they go from defects to being something else. But even they don't need to do that. They're all just colluding together. And it's crazy because a lot of them have kids. I mean, the social workers are relying on reports. It's like if there was something substantial, you wouldn't have to manufacture any kind of evidence to do this. You know what I mean? Because there's cases where they should take children because they are being abused.
Yes, absolutely.
But then at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, because you don't really put them in a good situation. So like, should you still come and like, yes, those kids need to be rescued, but are you the people to do it? I don't know. I mean, and I feel like they would prefer to leave those children in those abusive situations, because instead of like, if you were abusive, they would let you stay with her. I mean, it's like, it's nuts.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's sad. But then when I was asking the question, would you do something differently? I also meant kind of as far as like when you were seeking help in the beginning, right? Like when they came in. So what would you do in that case that's different?
I would not seek help from any children's hospital in the country. Children's hospitals are a haven for, I mean, everything's going to be flagged in the system as abuse, basically, anything. And I mean anything. I feel like I was religiously discriminated against because of my religious waiver of exemption. These doctors that I dealt with, I could tell were very angry. They did not want me to be able to have a right to refuse vaccinations on my daughter. So, that's a political war.
Right.
So they're at one side of the spectrum and I'm at the other side. So you can imagine how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, and how long has it been since you've seen her?
It'll be a year in July.
Yeah. And I know you were talking about like they even changed her diet. Like you had her on a specific diet. So because it was helping, and then all of a sudden they're just like arbitrarily deciding these things shouldn't be taking place, which is so wrong too.
Yes. I had her gluten-free for about 7 years for about 7 years up till the point where they decided to unilaterally take her off of the gluten-free and casein-free diet I had her on. So the caseworker, Rebecca Stevens, fought with me tooth and nail and said, unless you can prove that it's an allergy or, it's highly recommended by her pediatrician or something like that, unless you can show me that, then we're taking her off of it. And I just went back and forth with her about it. And so they took her off the diet. And about 18 months later, with a different caseworker, this caseworker, Kelly Hardy, says to me, we have Jessie gluten-free now. If you need any pointers, let us know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, that's good though, I guess. You know what I mean? Like that she is kind of back in that space. So what are you doing moving forward?
Well, they don't have her gluten-free anymore. They never followed up on anything.
Okay.
But they said that I was not trained, that I lacked training and skills to deal with my autistic daughter. It's like I would like to put them in the circle with her for a few minutes. Hey, you know what? I'm not above anything. You think you're the severe autism whisperer, the pandas pans whisperer. By all means, you label yourself an expert and you teach me how to deal with her, okay? Meanwhile, I will pop the popcorn and watch you get your butt kicked.
Right. Well, think about the woman she's with. It's like, how is she equipped to do?
Okay. Right. It doesn't matter. All they have to have is like a CPR card. So they don't. And so Mindy Foster Colley said something about her being trained. I said, okay, I'm asking for the same training that this woman has.
Right.
Because, I've been trained. I was a firefighter. I was a EMT. I was a paramedic. I'm a nurse. I went down. She was in two different severe behaviors programs, one at the Marcus, where I used to ride the bus and go down there and train all day and come back, and one in Florida, because we're originally Floridians, at Nova Southeastern University. But after after they had Jesse in the program, they shut it down for ineffectiveness. So so I have tried every resource under the sun. I have begged people. I have begged DBHDD, the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, and they have offered zero help. I begged the Georgia Advocacy Office, Joe, Sarah, everywhere I could try to get help. And I was trying to deal with Joe Sarah for about at least 14 months before they took her. I was trying to find resources through the Georgia Advocacy Office, through Atlanta Legal Aid, through everybody I could think of, you know, everybody I could think of. So they offer no resources, then they take your child for a lack of resources.
Mm-hmm.
And then they give the foster every resource under the sun, because now she's older. She's a little different. She's not as bad as she used to be as far as behavior wise, but I'm sure they give her a rescue medication, they give her respite care. She has so many trips to the ER, far more than I ever had. She has fallen down the stairs at the foster home. And I've encountered a couple other people who said their children were pushed down the stairs and had a humeral fracture. And as you know, long bone fracture is a red flag for physical abuse. It was, they told me they wouldn't investigate it. So I actually called the number, I actually called the mandated reporter number to report that. And they were mad about that too. I actually had the caseworker, Kelly Hardy, tell me that mandated reporting does not include my own daughter.
What?
I can't say that with a straight face.
But that's so ridiculous. This is the ridiculous.
Why wouldn't I report abuse on my own child? Really?
Because and if you didn't, they would be like, why didn't you report this? You're a mandated reporter. It's like whatever fits their narrative, they're going to say it. It's so absurd. Like you have to laugh. Otherwise you just want to cry. You know what I mean? Because it's like, these people are so evil. Like what is wrong? And just to think like, that's why this whole system has to come crashing down, because it's like, it is so nefarious and it has nothing to do with protecting children. It doesn't. And I don't know that it ever was. I don't know that it ever can be, because it's so tainted and infested that it's all like, everything is rotten in it. So you can't go like, oh, we're going to fix it. We're going to take this out and do this out and it's going to be okay. It's like, no, because there is no fixing a system that was intentionally set up like this, like if this is kidnapping, this is abduction of children that should be with their parents. And it's just disturbing. And I'm so glad that you've been wanting to share this, but so what are you doing now to move forward? Like, are you looking for an attorney?
Yes. I had a friend of mine set up a Give, Send, Go, and to try and, she just set it up. So trying to get a fund going to get an attorney, because the attorneys, this is not something where it's going to be, $3,000. They want a $20,000 retainer. So I have spent so much on attorneys already that I really don't have the funds at all. So, they've just destroyed me financially.
Yeah, that's their intention. Imagine if they gave resources to the parents that they give to the foster to attempt to make things better. It's like you would be able to do so much, get her care. You wouldn't even have to worry about these stupid attorneys they're not even helping. That's why it's like concerning to even, I'll post the Give, Send, Go. I put it in the links for under the show description, and I'll put it in the other places that it's going to be as well. But, I'm hoping, because like we're working on getting into DC and figuring out what kind of jurisdiction that is. So stay, connected with me as we have been. And, I'm going to keep you posted on that, because there can be possibly a way without you even having to use an attorney. Because I just find that they're just letting everybody down. And it's so sad, because you would think that there would be one out there that actually cares and wants to do right. Like, I used to want to be an attorney when I was growing up, and I decided I wanted to be an actress, and then whatever, here I am. But the Lord, that's neither here nor there. But I always thought, well, I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't want to go down the path of, I just didn't feel like I could defend somebody who I didn't want to. But I wish I had had that knowledge. I'm gaining it now as an adult, and like educating myself, which is nice, because I also feel like I would have been kind of indoctrinated. But it's just sad that there aren't more of them that really want to do it to get justice. I feel like they get involved in the racket, just like politicians and judges. They are all just like, it seems nice, and then once you get into it, it's not what everybody thinks it is. And so, they're in it for the money, and so they'll do anything to get more money, as opposed to provide justice. You know what I mean? Like, the whole point that you think they're there for. So it's just sad, because I'm kind of just waiting for one to kind of come out of the woodworks that's like under a rock somewhere, that's like, I'm here to help. And it's like, oh my gosh, yes.
We're starting to see cracks in the system, and some of these DFACS workers. I'm going to challenge some former Georgia DFACS workers to come forward and tell what you know, and tell what you've been told. Don't put up for these people, and especially the ones, they say the good ones get fired.
Right.
So
that's who we need to look
come
for.
forward and help us. But some of them are scared, because they've come against them and taken their children.
Right.
So,
Oh, wow. Really?
Yes.
That's not surprising. Can you imagine that? They're like, oh, you want to mess with us? Watch. Just like that. And oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's how nefarious it is. It's so crazy. It's so crazy.
We had a senator here, Nancy Schaefer. Have you heard of Senator Nancy Schaefer? And she was coming out with information on the corrupt business of Child Protective Services in Georgia. And as you know, she was, I believe, murdered, her and her husband.
Yes.
So, and it was ruled murder-suicide, which I don't believe for 1 second.
But they have to do that to cover up whatever's going on. But yeah, she was really calling everything out into the light and saying, we have a severe problem here. I've even shared some of her, like what she's written and different things. But that's why it's so important, because these people are, they're willing to go to great lengths to keep this, agenda and this, kidnapping and abduction going of children. I mean, and if you just see, there's an attack on children across the world, I think, like with the transgender stuff, with abortion, with sexualizing children. I mean, it's like, it is insanity to see how many, but it's the devil, you know what I mean? It's Satan coming after God's children. And that's why it's so important for us to stand up and push back. And like I always like to say, when the light shines bright, the darkness trembles. And so I believe it's going to take all of these parents and just the people of our nation to rise up and say, we're done with this, because that they're so afraid of the people that they want to silence everyone, retaliate, and make you feel fearful to come forward. And that's why it's so important to join together as a group and say, we're not going to allow this to take place anymore. Enough is enough. Like, we have to protect the children, because you guys are refusing to do it. So I feel like when the people are ready, the change will come, but it has to be that people are ready to rise up, and not in a violent way, but just to say, like, we have to stop this. I mean, we can't, because otherwise we're allowing it. We're just like, okay, yeah, no, they deserve to have their kids taken, like, whatever. I mean, it's like, no, we need to accept this reality that we're in and make a change.
Yes,
and I think that's right.
Right.
And I think it starts with you, like things like this, and coming forward and sharing stories that people are like, what? No way.
Yes. Because I come at this from the angle of I have no substance abuse history. I have no criminal history, nothing like that. I'm a professional person. I'm in the medical field. I've been a long-term public servant. If they can take my child away at the drop of a hat, they can take anyone's away.
That's right.
So that's where I'm coming from. And these people are all connected. There was some recent video that I saw. It may be a couple years old, but it was a group of GALs, guardian ad litems, and they were discussing child trafficking and their whole circuit that they do. They were all on a Zoom call together and they were all discussing this. And somebody was leaking information and they were all freaked out. We have to find out who this is. And then they said, we'll get some, forensic computer person to find out who this is. And that threatens to bring down the whole system, they said.
That's
And
right.
I'm like, well, oh, good.
Exactly. We need more of that. That's what's so great. If you find that, send it to me, because it's like,
Okay.
that is just, I love when people do. I mean,
Yes.
that's what's so funny though, instead of like fixing it and making sure you're doing right, they're like, we'll go all out to make sure it continues.
Yes, and they're like collecting money. Okay, it's going to cost us about $240 a piece, and oh, don't put it on here. Let's hide it in this Venmo account and this and that. And I mean, they're just doing all kinds of crooked things, and
well, all the truth will come to the surface. That's what's so great. You know what I mean? Like, as much as they think they can do this in the darkness, a light is being shined on this on a massive scale, which I'm so thankful for, because there's a lot of people talking about it, which is good. But now we need action. We need to start pushing back, And so I think that it's really inspiring. I feel like God is on the move. Like, he's like, I'm not going to let you do this to my children. And he's going to like part the Red Sea, and we're all going to like, be able to make a change. But we just can't give up. And, but I think they rely on, all the parents like you guys having PTSD, which is so wrong, because they've created it and then they use it against you. And it's, there's a special place in hell for these people. I'd like to say.
There is.
But you're so inspiring and courageous for, just sharing this. And I'm hoping that inspires others, and, hopefully more whistleblowers will come forward so that we can continue to blow the lid off of this. Because I know that, that it is possible. We just have to do it. And we have to step into that, knowing that we are powerful beings. That's why they have to control us, or try to. And it's like, walk out of that prison cell and into the light, and let's take this nation back and get these kids back home.
Yes.
Yeah. So I look forward to just, staying in touch with you and continuing to share your journey as it changes, if at all. But what are some like words that you would like to leave with our audience? Just whatever you would, feel compelled to share.
Sorry, let me add one more thing to my story. When Judge Jennifer Davis found out that I was going pro se in about, I think it was May of 2022, I think it was, she had all the records moved out of the safety of the clerk of court's office downstairs and moved upstairs right outside her chambers, where they can be altered. And she put a box around it and put juvenile clerk of court. We elect a clerk of court here. So Patty Baker is the elected clerk of court, and people have no idea what is going on upstairs on the third floor. And so now she has her own set of people and stuff who can be up there. And since they were messing with me I started videotaping them, because I was coming in there to file things and I wasn't able to file them. They would turn me away. They would give every excuse in the world. And so I started videotaping, which is legal in Georgia, one party recording. So I started doing that. And the next thing I know, there is the darkest back glass, like the darkest tint on the window. Like I've been to the FBI building, the Hoover building in DC, and it doesn't have that. But, juvenile court has this black glass on it where it's so dark you can't even see the person. I can only recognize her by her voice.
That is so funny. Like, that's how scared they are.
Yes, you can't identify people on video when it's just a
Right.
reflection.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, put it right up against the glass. I mean, I don't, it's just funny the tactics that they like. It just shows
Yeah.
how terrified they are of like
Yeah.
being exposed. That's why I'm like, it has to be. It has to be because many of them will crumble because they could not put up with any of the trauma they induce. They're such chickens that it's like, you
Yes.
guys are so cowardice. Like, you
Yes.
want to do this to people, but you're going to run away like a scared little turd. You know what I mean? And it's
I
like,
mean,
go for it.
if they weren't doing anything wrong, why can't I get their records? Why can't I get the transcripts? I paid $1,700 for the transcripts, for expedited transcripts that took 30 days to get. And she told me, and this court reporter told me that I wasn't going to get charged because I was a pro se litigant. I said, okay. And then she charged me extra, which Cherokee County court reporters have already been in trouble for racketeering back in 2012, I think it was.
Oh,
So they've already been busted for overcharging people big time. So I think they want to go there again.
evidently. I mean,
Yeah.
they're so narcissistic, they think they're untouchable,
Yes.
and they're
And
not.
in my case, they put two caseworkers at one time. One was working against me behind the scenes, and one was the front person. And then two of the big supervisors were behind the scenes working against me. Actually, three of them. So I had five of them working against me. And if they just put all that effort into trying to reunify us,
And
I mean,
help
it's
kids.
so much effort to be evil,
Yes. It's
But,
crazy.
yes, but I just want to add that, the guardian ad litem who didn't speak to me the entire case, she never one-on-one interviewed me. She never did anything to reunite me with my daughter. Nothing at all.
I'm
So
sure she didn't even
she was a former
communicate with your
defense attorney on the criminal side, Christine Fletcher. So they all work together. I mean,
Mhm.
even their hand selected psychologists that do the psych. This woman, I'm forgetting her name, Dr. Zom. Dr. Zom, she came out. She goes, "Okay, I see nothing." I said, "Okay, I know." She says, "I see nothing, but at the end of every eval, I write a little phrase. Everyone can benefit from counseling." That's what she puts in there to make the court say that you're court ordered to counseling when you're not. And she
And
won't
then,
verify because she's paid by them. So
yeah.
that's Dr. Zom's scheme.
Then you
So
got to pay for all those things. And you know what I mean? It's like you got to even pay for your visits. Did you have to pay for your visits to go see
um,
her? It's like,
yeah, they tried that, but I tried to get information. They wouldn't give me any of their providers because they have to be approved providers from them. So I asked for a list and they said there is no list. I said, "What are you talking about? You guys have lists for everything." So um, this was caseworker Kelly Hardy. She said, "We don't have a list." I said, "You're going to tell me that you don't have a list of providers, a list of vendors that you use for visitation supervision and visitation transportation?" Because I was trying to use the same transportation lady. They retaliated against her because she stuck up for me. They lied against me at one visitation, and she said, "I was there. I don't know what you're talking about. Mom didn't do anything." So,
good
and
for
so
her.
they retaliated against her, and they cut it down to once a month from 2 hours a week supervised to once a month. And they said, you can have more. We're not taking away your time. You can have more, but we're just not going to pay for it. So they're talking $700 a visitation to pay these people, having me pay out of pocket for these people $700 a week to pay these people. And I need to add that because my daughter was on Social Security because she's been disabled since a very young age, that they don't have me on child support per se, but I have provided everything I can for my child. Everything. I mean, specialty laundry soap, specialty shampoo, specialty toothpaste, every kind of wardrobe item, known to man, shoes. um, Pampers. I provide every food, everything for her visits, you know. So, and I give this lady everything that I think she needs, you know, any kind of garments and wardrobe changes throughout the seasons and everything, gifts and sensory toys and sheet sets and every little special thing, you know, little pictures for the wall, everything I can think of to provide for her. That's what I do. And they can't say one good thing about me.
And that woman's getting a lot of money. It's
And she
crazy.
has everyone praising her. Even my ex mother in law met her for 5 minutes and said, "Oh, I think she's wonderful. I trust her completely."
Okay.
And
Don't be around her with a bottle or a gun. I mean,
I think I said, yeah, I think I said, "Wow, did you background check her?"
like, oh my
So,
gosh, this woman
yeah,
has a violent past, you know, and
yes, and
obviously that's why your daughter probably broke her arm, you know, like she was
she
abused
was
and pushed out
married
the stairs.
to the king of domestic violence. He is in prison right now for domestic violence related charges. He has about 50 felonies under his belt. He is, you know, currently serving 20 years for cruelty to children in the first degree, cruelty to children in the third degree, aggravated assault. You know, he's just he was labeled a habitual offender back in the 90s. So that's the kind of person that she got with and stayed with. I mean, and all she had to do was background check him. I mean,
Right.
it's not like she's all naive or anything. She had a job in corrections. So I'm sorry, there's no excuse not to background check somebody when you've had a background in corrections. So,
Right.
you
Oh
know,
my gosh. It's like,
yeah, she stayed with him for 6 years and endangered her own children and put out a video on it.
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, make it make sense. Like, could it get any more nefarious than it is? I mean,
Right.
like, I always think, like, I'm not going to be surprised with different things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what the heck? You know, it's
Right.
like a never ending cesspool of just crap. It's so bad. That's why it has to stop. And so I'm so glad that you're here. And so, what would you like to leave as some parting words to our audience?
I'm just a mom and I just want my daughter back. That's it. I just want my baby back. I just want my Jessie to come home. That's it.
Thank you for that. And we're going to do whatever we can to make that happen.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and you know, like seeing where we can take this. And so don't give up. You know, we just got
I
to
won't.
keep going.
I
The
won't. I
Lord
was
is
with them for 30 years. I'm
yeah,
not giving up.
good, and I know the Lord will open doors that we need Him to and shut other ones. And so
Amen.
yeah, thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you so much for having me here.
yes, yeah. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Please donate to our Give, Send, Go. I'm going to put it in the description below this show. But stay tuned while I'm like, I can't even talk now. Join me next time where I bring you more truth, love, light, a little bit of darkness in between, all of the good things. So God bless you guys. Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.